Welcome to Under the Microscope. I am your host, Jenny Germano. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Today's topic, we are going to be talking about cannabis waste and the hidden compliance risk costing operators time and money. And before I dive in, I just want to share a little bit about my background. I got my start working in the cannabis industry in 2009 in Denver, Colorado. And in 2015, I founded my company, 𝗖𝗍 Consulting, and I've been helping operators navigate the regulatory landscape for the last 11 years. So let's everyone give a warm welcome to my next guest, Macheca. And 𝗂𝗍 is the COO and co-founder of Monarch Waste Company in Missouri. Welcome, 𝗂𝗍.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Did I do the last name correct?
You got it. You got
All right,
it.
sweet.
Impressive.
All right. Whew. Yeah. I always get a little worried with interesting names. I think this is a great topic. I'm so happy that you're here. And if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your background and your story and maybe what you did before cannabis and then when you came over.
Yeah. My background before cannabis was in sustainable agriculture. So I went to school for journalism and agroecology, and I ran a urban farm here in St. Louis for quite a few years before I got into cannabis. I always had in the back of my head that if it was ever to be legal wherever I was living, that I would someday jump into the cannabis world. And that is what I did. We applied to get a cultivation license here in Missouri, and we were denied an application. So that was really what launched me into the cannabis world.
Wow, what a great pivot, though, to come up with that idea and saying, I'm going to find a way to get into the cannabis industry.
Yeah, we started the application process maybe 3 to 6 months before Missouri voters actually voted to pass the legislation. I had a very close friend that was like on the ground collecting signatures, helping with the amendment. And so I had this inside person to say, hey, I know this is what you've always wanted to do. You should start preparing this now. We are going to pass this in Missouri because Missouri passes legislation like this. Missouri voters vote for this type of thing. So we hit the ground running really hard in, I guess that's 2018. And we were already working on our premises and our plan, and we were going to other states to look at grow operations and just doing as much research as we can to get ready for the application process.
Gosh.
So by the time applications were awarded, we had been working about 18 months on the process, and it was just our small little family team. It was just us getting the application together and just working our butt off to answer all those questions and do as much as we can to secure that license. We were going for a cultivation and a dispensary.
Oh, wow.
I was pregnant at the time. I had a baby during the process.
Oh, my gosh.
I was like bouncing an infant while I was writing the application. And with my background in journalism, I thought that I could really swing that application and nail it. We had that application in the first week, the door open, and I think I've watched your podcast. I think you helped write some applications in the process, if I remember correctly.
Not everyone won.
Yeah. And like when we put our application in, they weren't getting many applications. They were updating how many applications they'd received. So we were like, man, we really got this. And then right at the end, they got 1,000 more applications. And we were like, oof, this is not sounding good for us. And we got that we were denied our application, and we were just devastated, and there were definitely scoring discrepancies on our application. But
oh, I know, we had them too.
Yeah. But we didn't have the type of team that could just say, okay, we're going to put all this money into appeals. We didn't have the money to appeal
or sue
or anything. So we had already the industrial shredder, a cannabis waste industrial shredder that we were planning to use for our facility. And I was like, I'm done. I got a baby. I can't do anything else. But my husband, who is my business partner, was like, I have the energy to go with plan B. And plan B was to put that shredder on a truck and just start shredding cannabis waste. And here we are now, 5 years later.
That's so crazy. You guys had the shredder already?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't win, but however, when one door closes, I feel I'm a big believer that another door opens. And boy, did the door open for you guys to create this company.
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
wonderful. And did you ever think about going after the micro business license when all that started with the first round, or?
Yes, but by the time the first round of micros, they were opening up the applications for that, we already have pretty much a full schedule and a pretty big workload. So
Wow.
I knew that I couldn't handle anything else. And I also, as someone that's in the industry but not an operator, I've seen how hard it is to run a cannabis business. I've seen how hard it is to grow cannabis, and I feel very good in the lane that we're in right now because I just don't really know if we would have had the success in growing and dispensing that we are having as a service provider.
Maybe that was the plan the whole time. Just to go through the process. And a lot of great applications got rejected. We had multiple applications that had really weird discrepancy and scoring issues too. And I think a lot of people just didn't even have the energy to deal with the lawsuit or didn't want to spend the money. I've had that happen in several states. So yeah, I like what you guys are doing. I think that's crazy. And it's so true. I ran operations and I would not ever want to own one, ever. Nobody could drag me back into running a cultivation dispensary ever again. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. And it's even harder as an owner. There's so much compliance and you really have to build a team that can handle it, or you could risk losing everything if somebody makes a compliance mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. The operators, our clients, they need to know hundreds of rules. We have one rule we follow, and we know that rule really well. And we are experts in that rule at this point. And we get to our clients, we'd say, you just don't have to worry about this one rule. We're going to worry about it for you. And you don't have to worry about being non-compliant with your waste. You are safe with us.
Yeah, this is exciting. I know some people are like, Jenny, I can't believe you're excited about cannabis waste. But I am. As somebody who ran these operations, I've been dealing with cannabis waste my whole entire career, whether that was what to do with it when I was in the operation or helping clients figure out how to manage it or the compliance around it or SOPs. Or issues or, violations of getting in trouble that they're coming up against. So yeah, I am a little bit of a nerd about it. That's why I was so happy to find out going, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to talk with Monarch Waste about cannabis waste. Let's talk trash. Yeah, that's great. So most people think about waste management when they think about cannabis. So why is cannabis waste actually this really specialized business? It's a lot different than regular waste management.
Absolutely. It's probably one of the most regulated waste streams out there. At least in Missouri, it's highly regulated. So operators have to handle their waste a very specific way. They have to follow the law. And I think it's difficult when all that waste has to be shredded. So maybe it's not that difficult to shred a bunch of leaves, but what happens when you have 12 pallets of expired soda? How do you shred 12 pallets of expired soda? I don't know how people handle that outside of Missouri, but I know in Missouri, you can call us and we will shred those 12 pallets of expired soda. And we will do it fast. We will come in, we will shred that soda, and we will get it out your door. And we problem solve with our clients, depending on what kind of waste that they're dealing with. And it's up to the operators to deem their waste, whether it's hazardous or not hazardous.
Yeah.
So I think that's very difficult for a lot of people to understand what is hazardous and what's not hazardous. And it's up to them to decide that. And if they get that wrong, then not only are they breaking the rules for Missouri cannabis rules, but they're also breaking the rules on how waste is handled on the state level and the federal level.
Oh, yeah.
So they have to be really careful about how they handle their waste. There is just leaves and stems, but then there's all the other different waste streams out there that can make things really complicated, like vape pens, which are an incredibly difficult waste stream to handle. I really don't know how other states around us, I do know how it's handled. We know how we handle vape pens. We separate the cannabis from the battery and the cannabis still gets shredded. But we also know that maybe if operator doesn't have a shredder, they're just hammering those vape pens on their back dock and hoping that vape pen does not catch on fire. So I think there's a lot to cannabis waste, and it's something that maybe the average person outside of cannabis does not understand is so highly regulated.
That is so true. I want to kind of dive into the compliance piece about cannabis waste because that's like the meat of it. Like from your perspective, what are the biggest compliance mistakes that you see cannabis operators making with waste?
Let's see. Biggest compliance mistake. Gosh, where to start?
It could even be just they're not mixing. Some states have a list of what you can mix with waste. I see a lot of times people just straight up use bleach, which at least in Colorado, you can't use bleach. And they use bleach and they just make up their own stuff.
We hear about the bleach. I don't know anyone in Missouri that does bleach, but I've heard other states like Maryland uses bleach, which I can't imagine being a facility and wanting my employees to be handling that much bleach. That seems like a really big safety issue to me. As far as what we see on the ground, I think just throwing waste away that hasn't been shredded.
Yeah.
Throwing waste away that hasn't been rendered 50/50. Not off-gassing their manufacturing waste and just throwing gassy waste away. I think that might be one of the biggest things that we see that is a compliance risk. Though there are no laws in Missouri about that as far as cannabis goes, there are MoDNR rules about throwing cannabis waste full of butane in the dumpster. Other compliance things we see would be throwing vape pens in the trash, which it's legal in Missouri for a individual to throw a lithium-ion battery in the trash, but it's not legal for a business to throw a lithium-ion in the trash. When we show up to a facility these days, it's usually because they've run into a problem with the state having an issue with how they're handling their cannabis and they're out of compliance. That can be for a lot of different reasons. One of those is that they're using a waste company, a standard waste company, a typical waste company, and that waste is being sent to a landfill outside of Missouri, which is not actually part of the Missouri law, but the Department of Cannabis Regulation does not want that waste to leave Missouri. So it's hard if a facility is being scrutinized for that. It is really hard to find a landfill in Missouri quickly because good luck calling a waste company and getting someone on the phone. If you call us, we answer. But the standard traditional waste haulers, it's really hard to get anyone on the phone. And then you're asking, where is that waste going? And they're like, I don't know. We have 10 different spots your waste can go. There's a lot of reasons that they can be out of compliance, as simple as not shredding it, not rendering it, all the way to waste being hauled out of the state.
Yeah, sounds like DCR is definitely coming down on people. They're checking to make sure they're doing their waste appropriately. And just to be, in case people don't know, in case listeners might not understand, but when you talk about mixing waste 50/50, it's unrecognizable mixed with non-marijuana waste.
Yes. So in Missouri, the law is that all cannabis waste has to be shredded. And then once it's shredded, it has to be mixed 50/50 by volume with some type of material. So it can be compostable, which is grass clippings, wood chippings, anything like that can go in food scraps, or non-compostable, which could be like plastics or packaging material can be used as a rendering material.
When you say shred it, how do you shred? Like, what do they do with liquid? You mentioned the pallets of like cans.
Soda.
Yeah, the soda. Because I also would think liquid's kind of important because EPA has regulations when you're dumping large amounts of liquid or chemicals or anything. And since it is infused, that's not getting dumped into the water system, is it?
No, different landfills will accept that. When we did that big soda project, we shredded the sodas. We have one very large industrial shredder. We have multiple shredders. We have a really big one too, and it will take anything. So we can go through pallets, I know, pretty fast. And what's interesting about the sodas is we try to do as much material recovery as we can. We try not to let things go to a landfill if we can't help it. So we look into, okay, if we have all these pallets of soda, can we send the aluminum to a recycler And unfortunately, with the cannabis beverages, they all have this plastic lining on them. And so you cannot send those to a recycler. So
interesting.
yeah, so which was too bad. All of that aluminum could not be recycled, and it did have to go to a landfill. But the soda we were able to compost, and then the cans actually did have to go to the landfill.
That's so crazy. Yeah, I wonder, the inside of the can is lined with plastic?
It's the outside, like the labels, the labeling. You know how when a soda, it's kind of like a softer material than just like the can? You can't recycle it.
Gosh, I didn't know that. That's really crazy. So when a compliance officer or a regulator walks into a facility, do you happen to know what some of the waste-related issues that immediately are going to raise flags for them as they're coming into the facility for operators?
I think one of the things we see the most is camera angles, that their waste is not being destroyed on camera. And that is probably what we see the most. Because in Missouri, it's supposed to be on 2 cameras. And people don't plan for that when they're building out their site. So they have to have those 2 camera angles, and we have to be on 2 camera angles. So when we do walkthroughs with new clients, we have to make sure that our team, when they show up, are on those 2 camera angles. Otherwise, their inspectors will have a problem with it.
Wow. And I wonder if people, when they built out their facilities, I feel like this happens a lot where, one, like dispensaries, their vault space is too small. They don't realize they actually needed a bigger vault space, and they make more of a larger retail floor and a small back end, and then they have all this product crammed into a tiny spot. There's that. And then what I find is, specifically grows, because they have a lot of waste, is that they don't account for the space to deal with their waste. Oh, we'll just shove these barrels or whatever over here, and everything is just crammed in. And a lot of them don't account for the cameras because they didn't really design the facility around their wasting area.
Absolutely. We have had clients that have had to install additional cameras to be in compliance because of that. We will go in and look on their monitors and make sure that what we're doing is compliant and we are on 2 camera angles.
And there's no obstruction, which I find happens a lot. There's like machines in the way. Cameras are always getting blocked. Dispensaries, but I find that boxes or something will block things. In facilities, I've seen like the mixing bowls for the stand mixers, or put it on a shelf and all of a sudden you can't see anything anymore. So I'm sure you guys have probably uncovered some obstruction too with cameras.
Yeah. When we sign on new clients, there's always just the first couple weeks of our relationship where we're just working out the kinks to make sure that their compliance is nailed. Yeah.
No, I love that you guys do that. And this kind of brought me to my next question, because you're a third party. So how are you managing the tracking piece as it relates to seed to sale tracking requirements?
We do nothing with metric. And we don't touch it at all. I don't even have access to it. So every time we visit a client, we provide them with a manifest. And that manifest says which agent ID shows up. So which one of our employees are there and what their agent IDs are, what their waste streams are, what the weight of those waste streams are, where the waste is going, which composting site, which landfill, which recycling center the waste is going to. And then it also even has a little thing about hazardous waste where they have to sign that there's no hazardous waste in the waste that they're providing us. And then they sign the manifest, we sign the manifest, and then we upload that to a drive so that they have access to all of their manifests, which we actually have to keep for 5 years by state law.
Yeah.
They're able to take that manifest and use that to track their waste.
Okay, so it's a manifest that you guys created the manifest. It's not a metric created manifest, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. No, I like that. That's a great way to track everything. And it's all in a folder. And so if the regulator comes in, they could say, here's all of our manifests for tracking waste. And that it's going to a facility in Missouri, not somewhere in Illinois, you know, so.
Yeah, and I think it's been really helpful for our clients because when inspectors do come and want to know about where their waste has been going, they're like, here are all of our manifests. You can see who's been here, what time they show up, when they leave. It's all very detailed so that there's no question about how their waste is being handled.
Yeah. I love that. It's just really transparent. That's the way compliance should always be handled, in a transparent manner. And just documentation and tracking, that's what they care about. Can you show me, did you do it properly? Where did it go?
Yeah.
Was it on camera? And you provide all that information. And my next piece, I kind of want to talk about the different types of waste. I know you mentioned some. Can you explain the difference between, I'm going to list a couple, the green waste, which we've been talking about. We have hazardous waste, universal waste, and then manufacturing waste. And in Missouri, don't they have to designate what kind of waste generator that they are as well? I thought for EPA, maybe.
When it comes to hazardous waste, and that depends on how much hazardous waste they're producing. The facility has to deem whether they are creating enough hazardous waste to require that EPA number, and that's pretty much up to them. We do handle hazardous waste in the sense that we broker that for them. We work with a hazardous waste company that will come and pick up their hazardous waste because we are not a hazardous waste company. We don't handle it, but we do broker it for our clients so that they can just say, we have this and this, and we work with a facility that will come and handle that for them so that, once again, they really don't have to handle their waste, and we will handle all of that for them. But as far as universal waste and household waste and hazardous waste, basically any type of waste that is cannabis in their facility is cannabis waste. Universal waste would be more like their gloves and their PPEs and things like that. But anything that's cannabis, packaging, green waste, it's all deemed cannabis. And I think that's what you were asking.
Yeah, that's great. What are the types of hazardous waste? Is that more like chemicals coming from the grow?
Yeah, that can be anything from the acetane that someone might be cleaning their scissors in, or their metal halide lights, or the fertilizer that expired that they don't need anymore. There's quite a range of things that could be considered hazardous in a facility. Or if they don't properly off-gas their manufacturing waste with the butane they use. If you have a ton, that could be considered hazardous if you're not properly off-gassing your manufacturing waste.
Oh gosh, you could explosion, right? For
sure.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think that's happened. I think there's stories of that happening where people just dump their butane-laden butane-heavy waste in the dumpster, and then it can cause explosions. There's a real safety risk there. So all of our clients, we won't pick up manufacturing waste if it's full of butane. So we have a special proprietary barrel that we create for our clients to help speed up the off-gassing process, because our first couple years of our business, when we started this business, we're going to go to facilities and we're just going to shred a bunch of green waste and we're going to compost it, and that's going to be it.
And then extraction came along.
Yes, all of the other different types of cannabis waste started coming at us. And we've had to problem solve as we go. And I think one of the biggest problems we see clients face with their waste is the butane-laden cannabis waste that is not properly off-gas, because we won't pick it up. We're not going to risk our team being in the truck with a bunch of cannabis waste and a ton of butane in it and then exploding in our truck.
Yeah.
We're not going to risk our team. The number one most important thing is that our team is safe on the road when they're picking up cannabis waste. We have meters to check that waste, the butane levels, and if it's metering too high, that's not safe, we don't pick it up. So we work really closely with our clients to solve that problem. And it's been a little bumpy, because if you are a grower or a manufacturer and you're coming from another market that doesn't have a dedicated cannabis waste company like us, which most states don't have a cannabis waste company like us, you probably have never had to think about this. You've probably just thrown that butane waste in the dumpster, in the trash.
They do. They throw it in the dumpster.
Yes. And here we are telling these people that have been doing cannabis for years that, hey, this is not safe. And really, people don't really like to hear that. They want us to pick up their waste and take it away. And so it's been a little bumpy at times, but we've really nailed solving that problem for our clients by coming up with ways to get that to off-gas a lot quicker, because butane doesn't off-gas up, it sinks. So if you have cannabis waste in a barrel and it's full of butane, that butane's not going anywhere. So it sinks into the barrel. So we've created barrels for our clients to help them get that gas out of there quicker so that we can pick it up.
That's
it's
crazy.
working. It's finally working.
And it's just butane, right? That doesn't happen with CO2 or any other types of extraction.
We don't have that
methods?
problem with other methods. It's really the butane that causes the problem.
Gosh, that's so wild. And it's so dangerous I know Colorado would love Monarch Waste Company here because I have clients that they weren't happy with the other waste companies, but I've toured some of my clients' facilities, and every morning his dumpster gets broken into every week. He has to buy multiple dumpsters a year. I think he spent close to $6,000 a year replacing dumpsters because homeless people, tweakers, or whatever you want to call people, they're taking pry bars and they're trying to get open the dumpster. They know the material's in there because it's a bunch of cannabis facilities in this area. And he'll come into work and there'll be cannabis waste. What they do is they pull it out of the dumpster and they spread it out on the blacktop to dry out.
Oh my gosh.
It's wet, right? Because it was through an extraction process. And so he gets calls all the time and they're like, you have to fix this. He's like, there's no way to fix it.
Yeah.
I'm buying multiple dumpsters a year. I know people that they dig holes in their field and bury it.
Wow. Yeah.
They literally, on the outdoor farms, they literally have a section. They just dig a hole and they throw it in the hole.
Is that something that in Colorado is allowed, or you have to get special permission for just...
I think they have to let the regulators know they're doing it. And there could be county restrictions and municipality and whatnot.
But I do know a lot in Colorado.
It's just it's crazy. I don't really think there's anything like a Monarch out here, but especially in the metropolitan. I know you guys are in St. Louis, so you understand metropolitan issues, right? Dumpsters get broken into. Yes. That happens in the Denver metropolitan area. It doesn't happen so much in rural parts of Colorado or the mountains, but in Denver, man, people, they just know. They just know where the facilities are and they break into the dumpsters nonstop.
Yeah, and I know for the regulators that the diversion is one of the biggest fears when it comes to cannabis. So really, waste is one of those places that diversion can really happen. And which is why we have to make it unrecognizable. We know that not all waste companies that pick up waste, if you're using a traditional hauler and you're not properly shredding your cannabis, there's a potential for diversion there. And so using a company like us, who we make sure that you cannot tell this is cannabis once it's either composted or sent to a landfill, it provides a lot of, I think, comfort for our clients.
What's crazy is that people are breaking these dumpsters and they're going to dry out this waste that they're not going to even get high from. There's nothing left in it.
There's a reason it's being thrown away. And that's all they have to do is get in that dumpster and light a match so that they can see better. And they have created into a bomb that will blow up.
They could blow up. Not only that, for the people who are putting bleach illegally on things. I've heard it like wildlife can get in there and get sick from eating it.
My God.
Yeah, it's a big mess. And we talked about, I guess, manufacturing and extraction. And how does waste differ between each license type? Like dispensaries?
Yeah.
Do you do stuff for testing labs at all?
Yeah. Some of our best clients are testing labs because they have such a variety of waste. And none of the testing labs, having a big industrial shredder in a testing lab, one, industrial shredders are very expensive, and two, they take up a lot of room. We find that testing labs are really excellent clients because they have such a variety of waste. Yeah. And so they're going to have everything. They're going to have just flour. They're going to have extract, and their extracts in the little jars. And those jars go straight into our shredder, which is amazing. Wow. So beverages, they have joints. The joints in their little packaging, they go straight into the shredder. The vape pens, they have lots of vape pens, which is a very difficult waste stream. Again, we separate the cannabis from the battery, and the cannabis gets shredded, and the battery goes to a certified R2 recycler so that there's full material recovery from that. So testing, we handle a bunch of testing clients. The cultivation clients is mostly just pure green waste. And the average cultivation facility here in Missouri of our clients produce about 1,000 pounds a week. So it's a lot of cannabis waste. The manufacturing can be anything from the typical manufacturing waste is just the green waste that's been extracted. So whether they're doing hash or butane extraction or whatever, most of that is green waste. But if they have a product that's expired or didn't pass testing, they might have some type of other, like gummies. Sometimes we're going and shredding lots of gummies for someone.
Wow.
Sometimes pallets, sometimes just some packaging, just a few boxes. Dispensaries are our smallest clients, but they're steady. They get a little 5-gallon bucket from us. They get 2, one for all waste and then one for vape pens. And so again, we handle both those types, all waste streams for dispensaries. And then we also do emergency disposal for facilities. And sometimes that's a reoccurring client. And sometimes it's just someone has an emergency disposal situation. One facility a couple of years ago had a huge flooding and they had to destroy. It was a whole day of destroying cannabis at a facility that was all packaged up and ready to go to market. And then we also have done quite a bit of disposal for the recalls that Missouri had over the last few years, which was it was a real bummer for Missouri facilities, but it was a lot of fun for us. We got to go around the state and doing tons of recall. If your viewers don't know, we've had a bunch of recalls in Missouri, including one huge one where a facility brought distillate from out of state and then distributed it throughout the state. We did a huge project where we had destroyed 12 tons of cannabis waste from one facility. And that was multiple dumpsters of huge dumpsters.
It affected everyone. It
really
everyone.
Did.
Not only that, but it had to sit there because when they had the investigation going, you weren't allowed to destroy anything because they were in the middle of the investigation. Just sitting there and you can't even destroy it yet.
Yeah. And then we get a call that's, hey, we have to destroy this recall waste, but we don't know when we're going to get approval. So we would just have all these basically tickets of clients that are like, okay, we're working on it. And then as soon as they get the okay from the state, it's like we had to be there within a 5-day window to destroy their waste, which was pretty crazy for the 12-ton project.
Oh, my gosh. I can't get over that.
I know. For the big project, even the state was there. The investigators of the state were there for every day that we were shredding. They were in there with us. They were helping us. We have our big industrial shredder and we made a chute. So all of it would shoot into these big 15 or 20-yard dumpsters. And the investigators from the state were there. They were helping us. They were shoveling.
Oh, they must have thought it was wild with that huge shredder.
They really did. They're very serious. You try to make jokes and they're like, it's not landing, but they were helping, which was interesting and fun.
Yeah, sometimes they can be really serious. It just depends.
I get it.
If they start making jokes, then I'm starting to understand where we're at. But I pretty much just wait and feel out the vibe. But yeah, sometimes they can be very serious.
We're serious about compliance too.
Me too, but it is nice to have just a tiny bit of humor.
I know. Yeah.
I want to talk about operational efficiency. Many operators still handle their waste internally. At what point does outsourcing waste management become more cost effective than doing everything in-house?
Yeah, sure. There's the cost of the dumpsters, of course, the cost of the employees that are shredding, the cost of maintaining your industrial equipment. We have to maintain our industrial equipment very carefully because if you don't, your shredder will break. And then who are you going to call if your shredder breaks?
I've seen a lot of shredders break.
I bet.
I see people, they buy like a new shredder once a month.
Yeah.
They
all
break
someone
all
has to do is put one pair of shears in that shredder and you've potentially burned out your motor or damaged your blades. So the cost of maintaining their equipment, paying their employees, paying the pickup fees from this traditional waste haul companies who, from our experience, traditional waste haulers, they don't always show up. They might skip your waste for that week, or they might be late and their gates are closed, and then your waste isn't getting picked up. Even at the warehouse we operate out of, sometimes our trash doesn't get picked up. Good luck talking to anyone about it. They don't really care. They're like, what are you going to do? Hire someone else? We're the main waste company in town. I think that the costs really do add up. When we show up, even if it's 1,000-pound cultivation pickup, we are in and out in a couple hours. And most of the time there is spent more weighing waste and making sure that the waste is prepared for shredding than the shredding. The shredding moves pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So we are in and out, and we clean up after ourselves, and we don't really lose clients from our services. The only client we've lost this year closed their business. People are pretty happy with our services because I think it can be cost effective and they have one less thing to worry about on the floor.
Well, imagine my client in Denver who I was buying a new dumpster every other month. And locks. I said, gosh, you could be an investor in the lock company, the dumpster company. And he could wipe out all that if he just had a company that he could work with to come pick up his waste. The regulators were, is there a way we can give you special permission to hold it at your house? He's like, with my kids?
Oh my gosh. What a weird suggestion.
Yeah. And the regulators are trying to help him solve these problems. And that's a suggestion they made.
Yeah. And it smells really bad. Cannabis waste is incredibly stinky. It is.
Especially when it's wet and old.
When it's wet. Oof. Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah. Well, we would love to be in Colorado. And we love solving waste problems. It's what we do every day. You know?
Missouri is not far from Colorado. It's not a bad drive. We did talk a little bit about sustainability. I know you talked about recycling. A recycling program that you do with dispensaries or packaging or.
Yeah. Yes,
like
we
that
do.
You guys have? Okay, that's cool.
Yes, in some way, this is a perfect business for me because I'm a lifelong ecologist and environmentalist. And everything we do, at least everything I do, is just from a let's leave the earth better than we found it perspective. I just have always felt that way. Early on, I considered us a green company, like an environmentally friendly company. I don't feel that way as much because I really just want us to be a compliance company. And that's really more important to our client. Being environmentally friendly is important to me, but it's not maybe necessarily important to our clients. Compliance is important to our clients. Yeah. However, I get to go to bed at night knowing that I am keeping hundreds of thousands of pounds of waste out of the landfill and batteries out of the landfill. So we did last spring launch a vape pen take-back program here in Missouri.
Oh, cool.
We don't do anything with packaging right now, but it's the batteries that we're really focusing on. We estimate, and I think it's a low number. I'm trying to make sure that it's a reasonable number. But we estimate about 15,000 vape pens are sold in Missouri every day. And those vape pens, nowhere to recycle them.
Yeah, there's the all-in-ones.
Yeah, there's nowhere to recycle them.
The 510s.
And they go into the people's trash. And so we decided we would launch a vape pen take-back program because we already handle lithium-ion batteries for our clients. Those all go to a certified recycler here in Missouri for downstream recovery. I wish I knew the exact number, but it's over 93% of the lithium and the nickel in it. So we said, I think we can do this for post-consumer vape pens too. But how are we going to pay for it? That's like kind of always the question. But we got a local manufacturer here in St. Louis to fund the program for us, which kind of is how we launched the program. So our vape pen program is completely EPR funded. It's all funded by the manufacturers of the vape pens. Yeah. So, which is really rare for any type of take-back program that the actual manufacturers are funding it. So what we do is we have vape pen kiosks in 27 dispensaries across the state right now. And the first wave of those kiosks were funded by a local manufacturer here in Missouri, 𝗘𝗲𝗄𝗏, who is a very popular cannabis brand, like maybe one of the best manufacturers of dabs and wax. They said, we will pay for the recycling fees if you can get these kiosks in the dispensaries. And once we got a few kiosks in dispensaries, some of the other local companies, I think they were feeling like a little left out. And they're like, we want to be involved in your program too. So we now have 27 dispensaries across the state that are doing it, whether it's 𝗘𝗲𝗄𝗏 or Proper or Suede or a number of other dispensaries. They basically said, okay, we will put your kiosk in our dispensary and we will pay for the recycling fees. So once that kiosk is filled up with vape pens, they come back to us. Sometimes that's through a transporter. Sometimes we go pick it up and then they pay for the recycling fees.
Wow.
And I think it might be one of the one of the only programs like it in the country. We get calls just weekly from people in other states. They're like, how do we get your program in our state? And we can't. as of now, being only in Missouri, we have tried very hard to figure out how to get this program into other states while not being in other states, and we just cannot cross state lines with that post-consumer cannabis waste.
Wow. Yeah. I know Colorado, they desperately want it. They want to figure out the vape cart issue because they have recycling of packaging. We do have a lot of plastic packaging, like pop tops out here. We're not prepackaged here. Everything's really prepackaged in Missouri.
Yeah.
But in Colorado, they can still buy bulk, so they can deli style, and then they have all the pop tops and the doob tubes for the joints.
Yeah.
So they have recycling bins that customers can come and just drop them in, and a company picks it up. They want to solve the cartridge issue instead of everyone just throwing it into a landfill.
As of now, we're not even talking the numbers of tobacco, too. The numbers of these vape pens ending up in our waterways and just everywhere. It's really, I think it's a really big problem. It's not a problem that we had 10 years ago. So it's a very new problem. And a lot of people have solved the problem of car batteries and lawnmower batteries and toy batteries and all of these batteries that are bigger. But the vape pens are so small that the cost of recovering them, the minerals in them, isn't really worth the effort to collect them for most of the bigger recyclers. So it's a complicated problem, but since we do have the manufacturers of these paying for it through our EPR program, which, as we talk, I can tell you it's Extended Producer Responsibility. That's what EPR stands for.
Okay.
It's really a one-of-a-kind program, and we're really proud of it. And it's only been a little bit more than a year, so we have more dispensaries coming on board, and it's just we get incredible feedback on it.
This is awesome. I think when you guys get to that point, this could really blow up to be a big thing across the country.
Yeah, we would love that.
Or helping people set up their program in their states and, I don't know, however you would structure it. But if you can't be in all 20 plus states at once, which is a challenge, but I guarantee all these states, they probably want to find a way. These cartridges get thrown away all the time. I don't even know what to do with it. I hold on to them for so long. I'm like, okay, I just threw 10 in the wastebasket, like the all-in-ones.
It's so funny. When I talk to people when I'm out and about it, everyone says they have a battery drawer. And everyone has this battery drawer or this vape drawer that just keeps filling up because they don't know what to do with it.
I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
But it's just, there's no process for it.
I know. In the program, we are a B2B company. So all of our marketing and social media, it's really... we don't provide anything to the public, but this program's really allowed us to connect with the public here in Missouri, the consumer in Missouri, and get our name out a little bit so people know what we're doing. And for me, I think there's certain places that are starting to ban these all-in-one, these single-use vape pens. The marketing perspective for us, it's been really good for our company, this program. But I think in the long term, I'd like to just honestly see them ban these single-use vape pens because unfortunately, it's what the consumer wants right now because it's so easy. But at the same time, I think at some point, maybe, I don't know. We don't really ban anything in Missouri, so it's probably never going to happen.
No, and I don't see how carts, you mean like all-in-ones or?
The all-in-ones with the cart and the battery that you cannot separate. The UK has banned them, but I don't see.
Who banned them?
The UK, like tobacco, like single-use vape pens. Yeah, I don't see them banning. I'd love to see them.
That's like banning beer.
I know, right? I know.
It's no way it's going to happen. Speaking of the future of cannabis waste, I wanted to ask, so as more states legalize cannabis and now with this hemp-derived, the cannabinoid products, how do you see the cannabis waste regulations evolving over the next 5 years? Because now you're dealing with regulated marijuana. What about all this hemp stuff going on? All the hemp-derived, the THC beverages, and people can buy hemp flour and all these things. How is all that waste getting handled? Is anyone paying attention to what's going on with that waste?
So there are some federal laws about how hemp has to be destroyed. And they used to be really strict. They used to have to use a reverse distributor, which is a DEA-registered waste destroyer. But then I think the Farm Bill allowed them to do things like if you have a bunch of hemp and maybe it's tested with too much, the THC is too high and you have to destroy your hemp crop, they can bury it. I think that's the federal laws. They can bury their hemp. So that makes it pretty easy for them. We do get calls once in a while from hemp companies destroy waste, but it's not something we normally do because they don't really have any rules about it. So
I'm assuming they have waste.
Yeah, they do have waste.
Because they're extracting, making the beverages, or if they're making any kind of cartridges or anything.
Yeah, and if their beverages expire, they need to destroy them. And
tinctures and gummies and pills. They're making everything. Chocolate.
My guess is maybe they're throwing it in the trash.
Wow.
Because it's not regulated. Yeah.
Wow.
And then as Schedule 3 happens with cannabis in the future, once again, it will bring a whole nother level of regulations when it comes to waste. So that's some changes happening, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it's all going to look like with Schedule 3, but it could just blow this whole thing up for a lot of us, and we'll be adapting and pivoting all over again.
Yeah, so the code that was released in April, or I think it's April, said that cannabis waste can be handled. A facility may handle it with the rules of their state. So if someone's registering with the DEA, it says they may continue to just do it by their state rules. But I would think if it was a pharmaceutical company which used reverse distributors by the DEA, they'd probably continue to use reverse distributors by the DEA. So there's a lot of, I think, questions and uncertainty about the future.
Have you guys ever thought about expanding into hemp, like a hemp division for your business? Or it's just the demand's not quite there yet, if the demand was there?
Yeah, I think the demand not quite there. We're more interested in getting into, which we're in the process of, is police evidence destruction. Because once again, police stations...
Yes. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. They just burn it and they all get high when it's burning. And I see them, they're all in biosuits. I watched videos and I'm like, that's ridiculous. Why are they burning it?
Yeah, one of the local police stations here in St. Louis had us come in to take a tour of their evidence locker. And they said their burn barrel broke. So that's why they called us. And I was like, what? And they, again, will use like a reverse distributor or like a incinerator. But you cannot incinerate vape pens. Like probably every police station in the country has vape pens in their evidence locker they don't know how to destroy because you cannot incinerate a vape pen. So that's why we get calls. And we get calls from prisons and all sorts of random groups that have drugs they want to destroyed.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's pretty crazy. Have any of the police departments toured your facility to actually see this ginormous destruction machine that you're using?
We have a group coming next week, actually.
Oh my gosh.
We are cleaning things up, making everything shiny looking.
I bet you they're going to just be like in awe because they probably have never seen anything like it because they're so used to burning everything. They burn everything, right?
And they're burn barrels.
In a barrel.
Yeah.
That's crazy when they take down illegal grows. You're like watching and like they fill it with a U-Haul truck and they're just like cramming it all into the barrel and everyone's in biohazard suits. You're like, what the heck is going on?
I think some of the best videos on YouTube in the early days were videos of that.
Yeah, that is nuts. Let's see. For operators listening today, if there were 3 things they should implement to improve their waste compliance program, what would it be?
3 things. Let's see. Implement 3 things. Gosh, you're really stumping me there, Jenny.
Sorry, we could just say 3 things that could help improve how they're managing their cannabis waste.
Yeah, sure. Making sure that they really shred their stems properly because I know for facilities, especially if they don't have the really big jumbo shredders, that they really have trouble shredding their stems. You can run those stems through your little shredders a few times and try to really get that down so it's unrecognizable. Make sure that your team is not throwing anything else into your cannabis waste if you're like trying to send that out in the green waste dumpster, or your metric tags.
I was going to say the metric tags for sure. People probably get those thrown in.
Yes. Yeah, we see metric tags. We found headphones in trash. We have to check it a little bit. People with headphones, all sorts of other stuff that you accidentally just throw in their cannabis waste. I think there was like an MP3 player and stuff.
No
I don't know. I don't know if it's intentional sabotage or just people are just accidentally dropping stuff in the waste all the time.
But they're just really dropping stuff.
I think so too.
I really do.
Yeah. And then lastly, just making sure your team has their PPEs. Cannabis waste, especially when you're shredding it, puts a lot of stuff in the air. I see stuff in the news about the health of people in facilities that are using shredders and grinders. So just really making sure that your team has proper respirators, because breathing that in day after day or year after year can really cause some long-term health problems. And
cannabis dust. Yeah, cannabis dust for sure.
Yeah.
It's nasty stuff. It's nasty. I've helped clean up complete grow operations where we spent 6 months in there. And I'm not a mask person, but I had to wear a mask. I literally could not breathe. They had so much cannabis dust and not the proper ventilation. And we had a lot of destruction going on because they were under investigation. We had to bring in the regulators and do a lot of destroying. And it was gnarly stuff. And they literally went through 3 grinders.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
They just
especially
kept
if there's
breaking.
mold in it too.
They kept breaking.
Yeah.
The stalks and the stems and
Yeah. So good equipment. Make sure you watch what your people are putting in it, and good PPEs so people's lungs aren't damaged.
Yeah, it's crazy. And wrapping up, my last question is, what is the most unusual item that you've ever had to dispose of? I know you talked a couple the things that people are throwing away. Was there anything unusual that you had to dispose of?
Let's see.
Like waste-wise?
Yeah, sometimes when you get the chocolate and they've put chocolate into a barrel and then it's melted and then it's solidified and you have these huge discs of cannabis chocolate waste.
What?
And then we have to put that through the grinder. It's a mess. It's
They're
really
like these ginormous discs of chocolate, cannabis chocolate?
Yeah. I would say that's some of the weirder stuff that we have to put through the shredder. Or even when they put gummies in and then they've put their barrels outside and it's frozen. So you have frozen discs of gummies in barrels.
Are they fully suited? The person that's running the machine, are they in a suit so they don't get all jacked up? Or
they don't wear suits because it can get hot in the shredder or in our truck in the summer, but they wear full respirators on their faces so that they have a special, very heavy duty respirator so they're at least not breathing in, and glasses and gloves. But they could wear the safety suits if they wanted, but they don't want to.
It's got to be hot. That's crazy. Gosh, this was so fascinating to me. I feel like this might even be the first cannabis waste podcast ever out there.
I know.
I swear, I'm not sure people have really had this conversation, but I find it fascinating. And look, it's every single operator across the United States market. They all have to deal with cannabis waste. It's in every single rule and regulation. And I think it's funny that people aren't talking about it. That's what I find so crazy is we don't talk about cannabis waste kind of thing.
Blows my mind too.
It blows my mind. I really appreciate you being here today. That was exciting, getting a chance to know you. And I know we talked about earlier that we met through We Are Jane. So I appreciate the opportunity that we got to meet through We Are Jane out of Missouri.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have your information in the description box. And then for those who like to stream the podcast, it is available on Apple and Spotify or wherever you like to listen. And if you like podcast videos, I do have a YouTube channel, which is at Under the Microscope with Jenny. So please go on to YouTube and subscribe. And thanks again for being here, Annie. It was great talking with you.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks for being so interested in cannabis trash.
I know. Leave it to me. But I can't help it. My little compliance heart was like, let's talk about cannabis trash. Thanks again to all of our listeners, and I'll see you all next week on the next episode. Bye.